Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Mohammed Adam. Today I want to talk about a exam-focused lesson, but is still keeping the fun element within the lesson. Today we talked about the summary writing, which is exercise 4 for the IGCSE 0510 0511 syllabus. My mission or my target was to keep my students exam focused. At the same time, I want them to have their fun and to enjoy the lesson. So we went through mainly three stages during the lesson. I led and created the context of the lesson, and I led my students into the lesson. And then we did a little bit of reading, and we ended up going through an approach through which students might respond to the question successfully. So the first thing we did was watching a video about social networking sites and how people are distracted and how they're not emotionally connected. And then I asked the students to think about what's the main idea of the video, what's the message that the video is to convey. And then the students really came up with very interesting various ideas. We shared them together in pairs, and then I asked or nominated the students randomly using Class Dojo for them to share their thoughts with the rest of the class. As part of the lead-in stage, I asked my students to look at to work on the activity, which is numbered 1C, where they looked at the pictures about different social networking sites and messaging applications, and then they were asked to tick their favorite application or messaging applications and social networking sites. Right after that, I asked the students to speak in pairs or in groups about their favorite social networking sites. So the second stage of the lesson started off by allowing students to read a text taken from May-June 2010 series, and the text was about social networking sites and the main criticism of that. So I asked the students to read the text and to write a title suitable for this text, which is obviously reading for jest. Then I asked the students to share their titles with their partners and explain why they opted for that title, which was very interesting as well. Finally, I gave students final feedback or whole class feedback, where I told them about my title or the text title, which is Main Criticism of Social Networking Sites. Then we moved on to the final stage of the lesson, which is the most important one, which is the approach through which we can respond to the IGCSE exercise 4 writing summary question. We read the question or the rubric, which was read the following article about using social networking internet sites. On the opposite page, write a summary of the main criticisms of social networking sites. First of all, to expose students or to have them exposed to the stages that the steps that they have to get on and they have to go through in order to respond to the question, I gave them this activity that has got 8 steps, and then they needed to put the steps in the right sequence. The first step and the 5th one have already been done for them, and then they were given 3 minutes in order to complete the task. Right after they completed the task, I gave students pieces of papers. Each piece included a specific social networking site written on that paper, and then I asked them to stand up, and then they had to look for their other partners. For each group, we had 3 students, so teachers can work about this differently. You might want to divide them into 2 in pairs. You might want to put them in pairs, and therefore you can give each couple of students the same item, and then they have to look around the classroom to find their other partner. So students checked the answers together in pairs or in groups, doesn't matter, depends on the number of the students and the size of the class. And then I gave them a whole class feedback where I showed the answers on the board And then we moved on to the second step of this stage, which is writing a topic sentence. Writing a topic sentence was part of the previous lesson, so we already know, my students know what a topic sentence is. So for you as a teacher teaching this exercise for the first time, you need to bear in mind that students are familiar with the topic sentence, the concept of topic sentence. Then we were trying to highlight the topic and the controlling idea, because that's the main concept of a topic sentence. You need to have a topic, controlling idea, have them together in a meaningful sentence, you'd end up having a topic sentence. So our topic sentence was combined of the topic, using social networking internet sites, and then the controlling idea, main criticisms of social networking sites. And then I showed the students how I used my own words in order to discriminate the original text. And I came up with, the use of social networking platforms is conspicuously increasing, which has resulted into having numerous negative impacts. Afterwards, I asked the students to work on their own topic sentences using their own words. Students were given almost about 3 minutes, and then right afterwards or during, students working on their topic sentences, writing their topic sentences, I was trying to monitor as much as possible to provide students with the language they need. You should expect students asking for synonyms because they want to rephrase the original text. They want to discriminate the original text, and therefore you should be ready as a teacher to provide them with whatever necessary help when it comes to the language itself. Then we moved on to the second or the next step, which was highlighting the supporting ideas, which is something we already talked about during previous lesson. We talked about how we can support the controlling idea of the topic using different supporting ideas. For this exercise, for you as a teacher, the supporting ideas are there in the text. All students need to do is to highlight and underline these supporting ideas. They might need to use it later, or they might need to use it, they need to use it later actually in order to write their summaries. For students to check whether they got the right ideas or not, I had to stick cutouts around the classroom where students stood up, they picked their papers and pencils, they moved around the classroom, double checking on whatever supporting ideas they underlined earlier. You find all the supporting ideas around the classroom, walk around and check which ones you got and which ones you didn't, and underline those you didn't get, all right? I'm going to give you about 3 minutes, okay? Let's go. And then I gave them a whole class feedback where I made sure that everybody got the right 8 supporting ideas for this task, May, June 2010, summary writing. Right afterwards, we talked about grouping for coherence, and that's another thing we need to look at when it comes to teaching writing. We need to teach students or facilitate the learning process through which students might be able to write with coherence and cohesion. So for grouping for coherence, for this stage or step, I modeled to the students what I want them to do. So I gave them a model. I told them that I might opt for ideas 1, 2, and 4. But why? Let's look at it. Employees spend too much time on network sites. It's impossible to break away. Health will suffer. And I told them that they might regroup the ideas as it suits their logic because we think differently. But I explained why I put these 3 ideas in this group. Employees spend too much time on network sites, which must mean it's impossible to break away from social networking sites, and therefore health will suffer. So that's how my logic worked about connecting these 3 ideas. For different students, different people, different thinking and different logics, they might have their own ideas through which they might put the 8 supporting ideas into different groups for coherence. So during this stage, all I did was monitoring the students, providing them with help. Of course, they want to discriminate the text and therefore they need your support when it comes to the language. Then we moved on to sharing our ideas with each others, which is always good. I love to put my students into groups or pair work for mainly two reasons. The first reason is to promote students' confidence. Sometimes when you ask students to answer to your questions, they seem to be skeptical, a little bit hesitant to answer to your questions. But if they are given some time to confer with their partners and then circle back to you, then it's easier and it would definitely promote their confidence. Another reason I use pair work and group work is to increase communication in the classroom, and that's the main goal of teaching languages. We want to enable students to be able to communicate either verbally or in a written context, and this won't be allowed or won't be possible unless they are allowed more chances of interaction and communication. That's why mainly this lesson was through the approach of communicative language teaching, CLT, which is something I talked about in my first blog. So after the grouping and everything, we moved on to our supporting ideas. Now your ideas are ready, they are grouped nicely, but you need to give your students a model answer all the time. You need to model to the students so that they would know what are your expectations. You can't expect students to perform without you showing them first what to do. So for example, I took the first idea and the second supporting idea. Employees spend too much time on network sites. Okay, that's the first idea. I showed them how I discriminated and how I rephrased this supporting idea, and I showed it up on the board. Everybody had a look, and then I asked them to pick one supporting idea and to try to rephrase it. It's impossible, and sometimes it's way too challenging. You need to keep the challenge in the class as appropriate to the level of the students. Different students, they have different needs. So some students, they have they're considered to be high achieving students. We have low achieving students, so you need to cater to both, you know, the high and the low achieving students according to their different needs or different abilities, I'm sorry. So while the students are working on rephrasing the supporting ideas, I asked them to pick only two, but for those who are stronger with stronger abilities, they can go for more, because they're giving the same time. You're given 4 minutes to try and rephrase a couple of supporting ideas. If you can rephrase more, shouldn't be a problem, but always keep in mind that you've got students of different abilities. And then the rest of the supporting ideas could be given to your students as a homework, shouldn't be a problem. If you have enough time, you can go through all the supporting ideas in the classroom, but we are trying to not to challenge the students too much. We are trying to keep the class friendly and smooth. Then we moved on to the last stage of the lesson, which was showing my students a model answer or a sample, if you may say. I showed them a text I wrote myself as a summary, selective summary, to the IGCSE exercise 4, and I told them, I double checked that they know our maximum word limit is 120 and our minimum is 100 words. We shouldn't go below and we shouldn't go higher. You should not exceed the limit and you should not write below the limit. That was all about today's lesson. Thank you everybody, and I hope it was useful. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Ahdi Yusuf. I'm studying in Greenwich International School. I'm enjoying the English classes because teacher Muhammad Adam uses different methods to teach us. It uses groups rather than rows. He let us to bring our phones and laptops. He let us to do researches on whatever we are writing.
Hey, my name is Ayasir and I study in Greenwich International School. Personally, for me, this is my first year here, studying in Greenwich International School. And for me, English class is like actually my favorite class that I enjoy in, and I actually learn something and interact with all the students there. with Mr. Muhammad Adam.
Hello, my name is Faris Adil. I study at Greenwich International Schools, and my teacher for English is Mr. Muhammad Adam. Overall, the class is really fun, and we very much enjoy it, and we would like to have more classes with Mr. Muhammad Adam.